Afternoon, everybody. This one's going to be a bit of a rambling kind of discussion, but if you stick it through to the end, I think you're going to be happy with the information I'm about to give you. Now, normally I talk about self-defense, and this is going to be more self-defense, but we're actually going to talk about some psychology right now. For those of you that weren't asleep in high school and college, I'm sure most of you have heard of Pavlov and Pavlov's dogs. He would ring the bell and the dogs would start to salivate. The reason they would start to salivate is because he associated the sound of the bell with their food, and that caused them to drool. This doesn't work on just dogs, it also works on people, and we can use this to our advantage. Now, a number of instructors out there in the self-defense space have addressed this to one degree or another. Lee Morrison calls it state training. I just call it classical conditioning because that's what it is. Give you an example of what I'm talking about. Back in the early 90s, mid 90s, somewhere around there, a thing called NLP kind of made itself known, and most of it's debunked at this point. But NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming, is what it actually means. Used classical conditioning to help people deal with anxiety. And the way they would do that is you would come up with a trigger. Now, that trigger might be squeezing the meat of your hand or tugging your ear or something like that. Something that's, subtle, but you recognize it for what it is. And while you have to do some homework to make this work, and you have to create an association between that action and your desired outcome. So, again, let's say you have anxiety. So you would essentially meditate on a time in your life when you felt supremely confident, able to take on the world, whatever. You felt your top and performing it at your highest level. And while you're thinking about that, you would associate it with an action. Squeezing the meat of your thumb, pulling your ear, like I said. And because of the way our brain works, eventually you'll get to the point where you could just pull on your ear and you would immediately feel confident. So you'd be able to give that big speech or presentation or whatever. Now, we can use this to prepare ourselves for conflict. Now, one of the reasons most people lose fights is they don't even realize they're in a fight to begin with. So while they're getting the tar beat out of them, or they're getting the, somebody is stabbing them with a knife, what's going on? They can't believe it's happening. So, bearing that in mind, one of the ways we can prepare ourselves for conflict is we take our fence position, and that can be any number of positions. It can be the Jack Benny. It can be the classic fence, hey. It can be like a police interview stance. Anything that you do in that pre-conflict phase of a fight, when you're dealing with what Craig Douglas, also known as South Narc, would call managing unknown contacts. So you're dealing with this person. You don't know if they're actually going to attack or not, but you need to be aware and ready for things to go, south. Lee Morrison of Urban Combatives calls this state training. But what it all boils down to, again, as I said, is just simply classical conditioning. So instead of using this to deal with our anxiety or whatever, whenever we take our fence or whatever ready position that we're using that is a non-threatening, non-aggressive posture, we can associate that motion with being ready to fight. Now, Lloyd de Jong, in his tripwire system, called this idea priming. And that's kind of a really good way to think about this. Priming, he would assume a posture, and that posture would trigger that ready to fight mentality. Now, just because you're ready to fight, and this absolutely needs to be stressed, just because you're ready to fight does not mean you have to fight. So you take your position, your ready position, your fence, your Jack Benny, your whatever, and you associate that through meditation and practice. And I say meditation not in a, actually let's not even say meditation, let's say visualization. So while you're doing this while you're doing this motion, this pose, this whatever, during your practice, you very mindfully associate this with being ready to fight. Now, this sounds kind of weird, I know, but when you think about sports, all sorts of sports have been doing this for decades and calling it superstition. You know, baseball players have rituals, boxers have rituals, everybody has pre-game rituals. That's operant conditioning in action. You can call it what you want, but that's all it is. It is getting your game face on, associated with some form of action or ritual. So, like I said, in the self-defense world, the way we're going to use this is we're simply going to take our interview stance, our ready position, our fence, again, whatever you want to call it, and we're going to, while we are doing that, think about fighting. Think about your body getting ready to fight. Think about the adrenaline dump. Think about the panic, the state of mind that you would be in when you're fighting. And you associate that through visualization with that starting position. And this puts you ahead of the game. Just like our fence itself, from a physical perspective, has our hands up, has us in a place where we can easily block or strike or do whatever from, instead of our hands down by our sides like a jabroni. This mentally prepares us for dealing with that conflict. If you want to know more, feel free to DM me, because this could be, you know, this video could go on for hours, me talking about this, but it's a pretty simple thing, and if you do a little bit of homework, look up classical conditioning, look up neuro-linguistic programming and anchoring, and you know, look at what you know, the big sports stars do as their pre-game ritual. And you can take that information and we can weaponize it, essentially, for ourselves, and using it in a way to defend ourselves. So I hope this helps. I hope it sends you down an interesting pathway, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have on this bit of a rambling discussion. And you know, hit me up. I'm everywhere. Take care.